Imagine standing alone in the dark, looking up at a towering spiral of black and white stripes that pierces the night sky. The ocean breeze hits your face, carrying the salt of the Atlantic, but underneath the sound of the crashing waves, you hear something else. It is not the wind, it is not the seagulls, it is the faint, chilling sound of children laughing. But there are no children here. It is past midnight, the gates are locked, and you are the only living soul on the grounds. Or so you thought. You are standing at the base of the St. Augustine Lighthouse in Florida, a beacon that was built to save lives, but has a history of taking them. They say the light that shines from the top guides ships to safety, but the shadows at the bottom hold secrets that refuse to stay buried. From a keeper who fell to a gruesome death, to the tragic accident that claimed the lives of 3 innocent little girls, this place is considered one of the most haunted locations in America. What really happened on that hot July afternoon in 1873 that turned a construction site into a graveyard? And why do visitors today still report smelling cigar smoke when no one is smoking, or feeling cold little hands grabbing their legs in the darkness? Tonight, we are climbing the 219 steps into the heart of the mystery. Welcome back to TSF History. If you are brave enough to uncover the dark truths of the past, make sure you smash that subscribe button and ring the bell icon right now. You do not want to miss out on the shocking true stories we release every week. Join our community of history seekers and let's dive deep into the unknown together. To understand the darkness that surrounds the St. Augustine Lighthouse, we have to travel back to the oldest city in the United States. St. Augustine, Florida, is a place soaked in history, blood, and battles. For centuries, soldiers, pirates, and settlers fought over this land, leaving behind a residue of trauma that many believe still lingers in the soil. But the lighthouse stands apart. It is a symbol of hope, yet it is built on a foundation of tragedy. The current lighthouse, the one that tourists flock to today, is actually the second one to stand in this area. The original tower, built by the Spanish, fell into the sea due to erosion, but not before it claimed its first known victim. In 1859, the lighthouse keeper was a man named Joseph Andreu. He was a dedicated man, proud of his duty to keep the light burning for the sailors navigating the treacherous Florida coast. One day, while applying a fresh coat of whitewash to the exterior of the tower, the scaffolding beneath his feet suddenly gave way. There was no time to scream. Joseph fell 60 feet, crashing onto the hard ground below. He died instantly. It is said that his spirit was the first to become tethered to the land, forever watching over the light he loved so much. Many visitors today report seeing a tall, shadowy figure standing at the top of the tower, looking out to sea, or hearing heavy footsteps pacing on the metal grate of the gallery when no one is up there. They call him the Man in Blue, and he was just the beginning. However, the most heartbreaking and famous story, the one that truly haunts this lighthouse, happened over a decade later during the construction of the new tower. The year was 1873. The old Spanish tower was crumbling into the ocean, and the U.S. government commissioned a new, taller, stronger lighthouse to be built further inland. The man in charge of this massive project was Hezekiah Pittee, a superintendent from Maine who had moved down to Florida to oversee the construction. He brought his family with him, including his beautiful daughters. It was supposed to be a time of excitement and new beginnings. The construction site was bustling with activity, and for the Pittee children, it was a giant playground. Hezekiah Pittee had become friendly with the local workers in the community. The site was filled with piles of bricks, iron, and lumber. To move these heavy materials from the dock to the construction zone, the workers had built a small makeshift railway. It was a simple cart that ran on wooden tracks. When the workers weren't using the cart to haul limestone and granite, the children, Hezekiah's daughters and the children of other workers, would play on it. It was their favorite game. They would pile into the wooden cart and let gravity pull them down the tracks toward the water, squealing with delight as the wind rushed through their hair. It was innocent fun, the kind of childhood memory that should have been cherished. But on July 10th, 1873, the game turned into a nightmare. It was a typical humid Florida day. The workers were busy laying the foundation for the keeper's house. Hezekiah Pittee was on site, focused on the architectural plans. 5 children decided to play on the cart. There was Eliza Pittee, who was the eldest, her sister Mary Pittee, and the youngest, little Carrier Pittee. Joining them were 2 other children, a young girl whose name has been lost to history, and a boy who was a friend of the family. They all climbed into the wooden cart, laughing and jostling for space. They pushed off. The cart began to roll. It picked up momentum, clicking and clacking over the wooden rails. Usually, there was a wooden board acting as a stopper at the end of the track to prevent the cart from going too far. But on this specific day, for reasons that remain a tragic mystery, the board was not there. Maybe it had been moved by a worker and forgotten. Maybe it had rotted away. No one noticed until it was too late. The cart didn't stop. It gathered momentum, hurtling towards the water's edge. The children's laughter likely turned to screams of terror as they realized they weren't slowing down. The cart flew off the end of the tracks, flipping over violently and crashing into the dark, murky waters of the bay. The heavy wooden cart landed upside down, pinning the children beneath it. The boy miraculously managed to wiggle free. He gasped for air, surfacing in the panic, and scrambled onto the shore screaming for help. But the girls were trapped. The water wasn't incredibly deep, but the weight of the cart and the suction of the mud made it a death trap. Workers heard the commotion and ran to the scene. Hezekiah Pittee, hearing that his children were in danger, must have felt a fear that no parent should ever experience. Men jumped into the water, frantically heaving at the heavy timber cart, trying to lift it to get to the girls. It took precious, agonizing minutes to flip it over. When they finally pulled the children from the water, the silence was deafening. They carried the limp bodies to the shore. They tried everything they knew to revive them. They worked desperately on the beach, pleading with God, pleading with fate, but it was too late. Eliza Pittee, Mary Pittee, and the little unnamed girl, all 3 had drowned. Carrier Pittee, the youngest, was pulled out barely alive, but despite their best efforts, she too passed away shortly after. In a matter of minutes, Hezekiah Pittee had lost 3 of his daughters. The construction site, which was supposed to be a symbol of progress and light, had become a place of unspeakable sorrow. The town of St. Augustine was devastated. The funerals were heartbreaking. Hezekiah, broken by grief, could not bear to stay in Florida. He finished his work on the lighthouse, a professional to the end, but the moment it was completed, he took his wife and remaining family and returned to Maine, leaving behind the graves of his little girls. But the story did not end with the Pittee family's departure. In fact, many believe the story never ended at all. The lighthouse was completed in 1874, and for nearly 150 years, keepers and visitors have reported unexplainable phenomena that center almost entirely around those children. It started with the keepers. They would report hearing the distinct sound of children giggling on the grounds late at night when the gates were locked. They would find small, wet footprints on the stairs of the tower, footprints that started from nowhere and vanished into thin air. As the years went on and the lighthouse became a museum, the reports became more frequent and more specific. Tour guides and visitors have reported seeing the apparitions of young girls wearing old-fashioned dresses. One specific entity is often seen looking over the railing of the lighthouse gallery, her hair blowing in the wind, waving to people below. When they look back up, she is gone. Inside the tower, people often report a sudden drop in temperature, a cold spot that moves. Some have felt a tug on their clothes, like a child trying to get their attention. Others have felt small hands pushing them or grabbing their ankles. But perhaps the most chilling evidence comes from audio recordings. Paranormal investigators have visited the St. Augustine Lighthouse countless times, and almost every time they capture electronic voice phenomena, or EVPs. In the static of the recordings, you can hear clear, undeniable voices of children. Sometimes they are laughing, sometimes they are humming a tune, and sometimes they are crying for help. There is also the legend of the cat.
During the construction, it was said that a pet cat was also killed in a separate accident on the grounds. Visitors have reported feeling something brush against their legs, like a cat rubbing against them, but when they look down, there is nothing there. It is a small detail, but it adds to the layering of energy that seems to be trapped in this place. And let's not forget the keepers. While the Pittee girls are the most active spirits, the men who tended the light have never really left either. We mentioned Joseph Andreu, the man who fell to his death, but there was also Peter Rasmussen, a keeper known for his love of cigars. He was a meticulous man who took great pride in the lighthouse. To this day, people smelled the distinct, pungent aroma of cigar smoke in the lantern room and the keeper's house. It comes and goes in an instant. Since smoking has been banned on the premises for decades, there is no logical explanation for it. It is as if Peter is still there, pacing the floor, making sure everything is in order, smoking his cigar as he watches over his beloved tower. The basement of the keeper's house is another hot spot for activity. It was used as a cistern to hold water, and the darkness down there is heavy. Some visitors have reported seeing a tall, shadowy man emerging from the darkness of the basement, blocking their path before dissolving into the shadows. Is this the spirit of a former keeper, or is it something darker, something ancient that was on this land long before the Spanish even arrived? The St. Augustine Lighthouse is a paradox. It is a beautiful structure, striped in black and white, topped with a red lantern that can be seen for miles. It is a place of safety for sailors, a warning to keep them away from the dangerous shoals. But for the spirits that linger there, it is a cage. The Pittee sisters, playing their eternal game of tag, running up and down the stairs, never growing up, never leaving. Joseph Andreu, forever falling, forever watching. Peter Rasmussen, forever tending the light. Skeptics will say that the sounds are just the wind whistling through the iron lantern room. They will say the shadows are just tricks of the light played by the rotating lens. They will say the cold spots are just drafts from the ocean. But how do you explain the wet footprints? How do you explain the multiple independent accounts of people who have never met, all describing the exact same little girls in the same dresses? How do you explain the overwhelming feeling of sadness that washes over you when you stand near the spot where the railway tracks once ended? If you ever find yourself in St. Augustine, go to the lighthouse. Climb the 219 steps. Feel the burn in your legs and the dizziness of the height. But as you climb, listen closely. Don't listen to the wind. Listen for the laughter. Listen for the faint sound of a wooden cart rolling on tracks. And if you feel a cold hand grab your hand in the darkness, don't pull away. It might just be little Mary or Eliza, looking for a playmate in the dark, waiting for someone to push their cart one last time. History is not just dates and facts. It is emotion. It is tragedy. It is the energy left behind by those who lived and died before us. The St. Augustine Lighthouse is a monument to that energy. It stands as a reminder that while buildings can be repaired and replaced, the human soul leaves a mark that can never be erased. Thank you for watching this episode of TSF History. What do you think? Is the lighthouse truly cursed, or is it just a collection of tragic coincidences? Have you ever visited a haunted historical site? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. We read every single one. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the dark side of history, please hit that like button. It really helps the channel grow. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a story. Until next time, keep looking into the shadows because you never know what might be looking back. This is TSF History, signing off.